Okay, so I'm done with the first step. Probably took me way longer than it should have, but essentially what I did was get the 4 brackets into the ceiling. You can see I used the laser level. There they are. And you can see I've done this before. So what I did was thought about the way I wanted to install the brackets that would give me the most forgiveness if I was off by a couple inches. My joists in my ceiling, some run this way, and then the one here runs horizontal. So I went up in my attic. They're exactly 24 inches apart, so that works out to give me the 8 feet that I want. I read a lot of reviews that said these lag bolts break off, so I was very gentle with them. I screwed them in with a drill very slowly, about 3/4 of the way, then hand tightened them the rest of the way. Right now they're still not tight, they're a little loose. That way if I have to redo any of them, I can. So I'm going to go ahead on to the next step, but first I want to show you guys the tools I used. So I used 2 stud finders. This one's a magnet. I like this one the best. It's got a very strong magnet. When it finds the stud where there's a drywall nail, it'll hang on there. Then this electronic one, I use it to double check. So like I said, I hand tightened my lag bolts after I drilled them in, and I used a 3/16 inch drill bit to make the pilot holes, just like the instructions say. So, okay, thanks. Alright, the next step was pretty easy. Just installing the 18-inch vertical rods there. There is a screw, 2 washers, and a lock nut for the other side of the bolt on all of those. So it's like putting together a connector set. Pretty simple so far. I think the next step is where we'll make our support beams and then try to put them in with a rubber mallet. A couple things to note when you start putting the main beams on. Number 1, on your support beams that go from the top 18 inches below, make sure the bigger part of the hole's towards the top, and the littler part of the holes at the bottom. You're going to use a rubber mallet to secure those in. I had to loosen up the bolts that hold some of the vertical supports, 18-inch vertical supports, to better get some wiggle room, and there is wiggle room up there at the top. So I measured very closely and must have been a few centimeters off on one of them, but we're going ahead and put the long ones in now. As you put the long beams in, the 8-foot beams, I'm doing this by myself, so I found it's helpful to use 2 ladders. I have one here and then one here. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for just one person to do this. You're going to have something to rest one end of that on. Okay, so the next step is to put the center support beam in, and since I'm doing it by myself, you can see it goes in with 2 screws on each side. I just put in one side real loose, tightened it with my hand, just real loose. Then it gave me some forgiveness on this side to get this side in, then I tightened it up. So I did take a rubber mallet and go around and make sure everything was down as far as it could go, everything's secure. All my bolts that were loose are now tight. So I'm going to go ahead and put the final brackets in that go, just the support beams. Should be relatively simple. We'll do that, then put the grating on. Alright, the last step was to put the grates on. There shouldn't be any overlap on the grates. If you just lay them up there, for me there was, but so I had some zip ties. If you zip tie them and hold them in place, there won't be any overlap. So you have a nice secure place to put some storage. I'm in Florida right now, and it's really hot today. I couldn't imagine if I had to go up in my attic and store things. I wish I would have known about this when I was in Oklahoma.